Sorry about that.
Are we good, you think?
I think so.
Okay, I'll ask her. So was the recording started?
No,
Oh, okay,
I'm so sorry.
okay. It's going now, though?
It is now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, sorry. So we can do an interactive search, and you can enter into a address in question, and then pull up the parcel information through this way. So for City Hall, we're in the institutional district. So that was what I wanted to show you with that. And then John had gone through the main points of each district.
Is it my turn? Oh, sorry.
Well, I think we pretty much covered this. I was just going to go through the intent. So for
Okay.
commercial or limited commercial, we're hoping to provide an area which is convenient, visually pleasing, and contributes to the economic welfare of the community and allows for a wide range of general business and other compatible uses. For residential, and that includes the single-family, two-family, single-family, multifamily, rural residential, it provides for stable residential development for a range of housing densities, and those range of housing densities are, again, depending on where they are in the city. So the dark purple on the map is single-family, two-family. The light blue is rural residential. And so kind of you can see what we're aiming for with that, with housing densities. For industrial, like John mentioned, some of those industrial uses are a nuisance and they would decrease property values. So to provide areas for industrial and related uses whose external physical effects are predominantly restricted to the area of the district. And then there's institutional, and that provides an area in which government and tax-exempt institutions can offer social and cultural amenities to the citizens of the community. And then we were going to touch on the K-Rod if you wanted to talk about that.
Right, so everybody's, I don't know, I know David and Jenny are probably pretty familiar with the Kenai River Overlay District, but I don't know if Eric and Mark are. There's, in the city of Soldotna, one more zoning district. It's called the Kenai River Overlay District. And what this is literally an overlay. It lays over all the other districts. So for example, the overlay district, what it does is it provides an extra set of protections along the Kenai River. So within the first 100 feet adjacent to the ordinary high water mark of the river, there is this overlay zone. So that means in addition to potentially having like a residential district or a commercial district underneath it and those standards, you also have the river overlay district on top of it, which has its own set of standards. And it is also somewhat similar to the rest of our zoning districts in that there are certain things within there that we can approve administratively and other things that have to come to you. And again, in your work here, you'll see in the next several months probably a few of these coming forward. And I think when they do come forward, we'll spend more time on them and go through them. But we just wanted to share with you that there is this unique district within the city that allows for greater protection along the river.
And then we also have a section of the code which is for definitions. So we have clearly defined out what some of the terminology is. For example, if there was somebody who wanted to do car detailing in a single-family, two-family residential, which we encountered this past year, it falls under automotive service, and then that details whether that can be allowed as a home occupation within that district, and it's not allowed. So it really does help when we have questions arise or we have some type of complaint or a violation occur, is to have a set of definitions. And so that's in 1710, 130, and it's all the definitions that pertain to the zoning districts. And then before you, like today, we had a public hearing, and depending on what type of conditional use is allowed in a district or a variance, that's when we see that the public hearings, what the Planning and Zoning Commission sees before them. And that is also listed in the code, so 1710-400. And again, part of the code has the intent of what a conditional use permit would be. For example, today we saw an apartment building being constructed in a commercial zoned district. And then there's going to be 8 standards, and we went through all 8 of those standards, but those are listed in the code. And so each of those standards has to be met for a conditional use permit to be approved and to be granted for the applicant. Some of the, I'm going to show a slide that kind of outlines between. And so some of the types of permits that are seen administratively between John and myself are temporary use permits or site plan reviews. You did see a site plan review for the VA clinic come before you in the springtime or the summer of last year. But most of the site plan reviews we handle administratively. Temporary use permits are for things like concerts or outdoor events, markets, things like that. And then that is also mentioned in the code. And I'll share that too. And so those are called, so there's a section for temporary uses, and those, outdoor concerts, markets, carnivals, things like that would be considered temporary uses in nature. And when there are changes to the zoning code, John was going to go over what is entailed with that.
Sure. So the zoning code can be changed, amended, added to, subtracted from, and there's 3 groups that have the power to do that, and you're actually one of them that can initiate a change to the zoning code. And you would do that by making a motion in your meeting and requesting that certain amendments be made to the code, and then the staff would have to come back and prepare or go back and prepare the materials and bring them forward to you so that a public hearing could be held and you could make a recommendation. And your recommendation is made to the council. The council has the ultimate authority to either make that change or not, but they rely on the planning commission to provide guidance in that effort. The council also can change the zoning code, and the process is similar. If they want to see a change, they would ask staff to prepare some materials for them to consider, and those typically would go to you first. So the planning commission would review it. You'd make your recommendation, and then it would go to the city council for, again, their thumbs up or thumbs down or something in between. And then the last group of folks who can request a change to the zoning code are the public. And the public has a couple different ways they can do it. One is by a petition signed by a majority of the property owners in the area to be rezoned, or a petition bearing the signatures of 40 registered voters within the city to amend the ordinance. So two different ways. And a lot of the times, or I should say, most of the times that we've had zoning modifications, and it's usually been additions, it's been one property owner or maybe 2 property owners wanting to change their zoning district to the one that's right next to them. So they're currently single family, but they're adjacent to a limited commercial district, and they want to create a business, so they ask to be switched to limited commercial. So in that situation, a single person submits a petition to us, gets forwarded again to you to make a recommendation to council, and so on. A couple things on that, just to let you know that amendments to the zoning code can only be considered if the tract size is 2 acres or greater. There's one exception to it, and that's if the amendment would enlarge an adjacent zoning or an adjacent boundary. So where we do, well, the example I gave, where someone's in a single family district and they've got a half-acre lot and they're next to the limited commercial district and they want to become limited commercial, that would qualify for, that would meet the standard, and they'd be able to apply for that change even though they're not 2 acres. They would be enlarging the limited commercial district and be allowed to do that. And I think that's the basics on the zoning code changes. Any questions on that? Okay. Where does that leave us, Jen?
Did you want to go over the comp plan for the overview for the land use goals.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm just going to do this real briefly because I know I've talked to all of you about our comp plan, and you all have copies of it. There is a section in land use on here with a number of different goals. Some of them are specific to the zoning code, and they make recommendations. Some of those we're actively working on, including things like changing our sign code is one of the recommendations in here, and that's something that we started a while ago and we weren't able to finish, but it's not dead yet. We'll get back to it. Other changes had to do with Airbnbs and VRBO concepts, and we made some changes there. Trying to think what some of there's I think a specific recommendation in here to look at the zoning on a big piece of land across or on the Kenai River across from the airport. That's one we haven't tackled yet, but this does contain, like I say, a number of things on land use and zoning code related. So I'll leave it with that. But do you have anything else?
No.
So that concludes our report on zoning. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have one question. This is Mark Burton.
Okay.
This is on the zoning, and it's a bit of a hypothetical question since I'm learning all of this right now. So this has to do with the zoning and annexation. So say, a certain area is annexed, and within that area, there's a property that technically violates the one of the municipal codes that talks about significant noise, glare, odor that might bring down property values. Now, prior to being annexed, if this property has been going on, for a considerable amount of time, when annexed, are they required to immediately or in a certain amount of time to bring the property up to code, or how would that work? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And in fact, we actually have a specific section in this code, and I forget where it is, but it does actually cover zoning of annexed areas, and that's section 215. It only provides a limited amount of guidance, though, and basically what it tells us that we have to do is that within 30 days of annexation, the commission has to recommend a zoning plan for the annexed lands to the city council. And so that's the only thing our code requires. So what that's telling us is you're going to make a recommendation. The council has to make a decision, and there's many different ways the council can go. There's no standard. The council can essentially, for one, say that basically existing uses may continue indefinitely, essentially grandfather all existing uses, regardless of the zoning district. So in that situation, even if a zoning plan were implemented and a residential district was overlaid, someone who's got the industrial warehouse or whatever it is, they would still be allowed to continue if the council were to take that action, which would be to grandfather. On the other hand, the council could say, we want to adopt strict requirements for this area, but maybe not for that area, where in this area, we want to make sure the code is followed. Even if the use is non-conforming, it won't be grandfathered. So there isn't one answer. It really depends on the wishes of the council, and this is something that we have talked about in our discussions throughout the last 5 years on annexation, and generally the thought pattern was to allow existing uses to continue, and that's essentially how we've gotten to this point in Soldotna, because in 1985 there wasn't any zoning code in Soldotna, and we've gradually worked our way to conformity in most of our districts, but we still have a number of non-conforming uses even today. And so it's a slow process, but it's one that's acceptable to most people. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Great. Are there any other questions?
I don't see any, Charlene.
Okay, we will move on to the mayor and council reports. And we have Councilmember Kamala Parker. Is she present to give the report?
All right. Hi, everybody. I just got a couple notes together from our last few meetings just to share with you all so you would have an idea of what we've been working on recently with council and then what's coming up. The first was that the budget cycle is getting started, at least at the administrative level. We won't really start to delve into that with council until April, May timeframe, but we are going to be doing the budget for FY22 and 23 at the same time this year. So that's really exciting to kind of tackle that. That'll be the first time that we're doing it for the 2 years. We've also worked on updating the policies at the Sports Center. You might have seen we've got the Brown Bears coming back this month. It's March already, isn't it? So they'll be back, and we did increase the number of attendees that are able to come and support the team with some social distancing and COVID mitigation plans in place. So that's going to be really exciting to see that, and also allowing for an increase if we continue to see a decline in cases in the area. We are going to be looking at, I think this next meeting, a new updated CARES spending plan. I know that the working group got back together, the nonprofit working group and the business working group got back together to come up with some new ideas or potentially rejuvenate some existing ideas that we had for expending CARES funding, getting that out to our nonprofits and to our businesses. And that I believe council will be taking a look at that updated spending plan at our upcoming meeting. But I've heard there's some creative ways to continue to support our businesses, and then some additional grants that could be in there for some of the nonprofits, specifically focused on, I think, food security, housing, and mental health. I think those are the big ones that were included there. And then also there was an extension to the food bank grant, another, I think it was like roughly $130,000 to continue with their weekly food box program, because they have definitely seen an increase in the area when it comes to a need for food for folks. And then not really council related at all, but I heard through the grapevine that they're opening up a new tier for vaccines tomorrow. So I think it's all, and the expert in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be all essential workers. And you don't have to have a pre-existing condition anymore. So it's opened up like 16 plus essential workers. So grocery store, food service. So it's really exciting to see that we're going to have additional individuals able to get vaccinated now. So I think that was all I had. If anybody had any questions, just let me know.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Parker?
I see none.
I'm not hearing any. Well, thank you, Pam, and it's a great report. And I just really want to say I appreciate the council recognizing mental health. So thank you. We will move on to the city manager report. City manager Queen available?
She's not here.
Okay. So then we will move on to the director of ED&P reports, city/city planner report, economic development and planning director, Cerneski.
Thank you. So just a couple things to report, and I honestly don't remember if I reported this last time. The city did file its appeal for annexation. Did I report this? I'm looking around to see any nods. Okay. All right. So the city did appeal the decision of the Local Boundary Commission. I won't go into that anymore if I already shared that. I was going to share a little bit about the CARES Act update, but I think Councilwoman Parker has adequately covered that. So done. We did submit our hazard plan. I don't know if you'll, David and Jenny, you might remember this, but we had worked on a hazard plan and you had reviewed it. Actually, this was late in 2019, and we had submitted it to the state, and then it fell off the face of the earth, and we hadn't heard back. COVID hit. We recontacted them, and we, said, we want to get this thing done, and can you help us out? And they have some new faces at the state level, and they were able to elevate our plan quickly to FEMA and get it reviewed. So that is finally moving forward, and will be before the council. It'll be introduced to the council at their next meeting for adoption, and then at their second meeting at the hearing level, they will hopefully adopt it, and then it goes on to the borough for their review and approval, and then back to FEMA. And we will have then an adopted hazard plan, which is important because it allows us to be eligible for a number of different grants and different financial assistance programs. Shelley asked me to share with you a reminder. So you all have to file a public office financial disclosure form. And so those are due on March 15th. And it's important that you turn those in because the state has fined people in the past. So please take the time to get those in if you haven't already. And then I also wanted to share that I attended a meeting of there's a group that's together in the community that came together in the community to try to develop an emergency cold weather shelter. And they've been at this for a couple of years now. But there was some good news reported at the last meeting in that they may have found a building where they might be able to hold or create the shelter. And we don't have an exact location. They weren't willing to share that at this point, except to say that it's not too far outside of Soldotna, on K Beach, close to the food bank. And so they're hopeful that with some renovations, they'll be able to lease the property, renovate it, and get it up and running. So we'll keep you posted on that. That's real good news. And then last, I just want to ask you guys, I know a couple of you attended the APA conference. So I'll be curious when we do the commission comments, what you guys thought, what you got out of it, whether it was worth your time or not. And that is all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we'll be moving on to commissioner comments. However, I do not have the roster in front of me, so if somebody could call the names, I would appreciate that.
All right, we can just go from C to A on. So Eric, do you have any comments? He says none. Jenny?
No comment.
Mark?
I just wanted to say that the conference was a joy to attend, learned a lot from it, met new people, and it was a very educational experience. So thank you for paying for that.
Thank you. And David?
No comment.
And that's it, Charlene.
Thank you. And my comment would be I attended the conference. I enjoyed it, learned a lot. I also want to comment on John's report about the cold weather shelter. That is great news. I missed that meeting, unfortunately. And that's all. It's been a challenge trying to lead this meeting on an airplane, but I did it. The plane was late, so it worked in my favor. So thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you, Charlene. You have
And so we need a motion to adjourn now?
I'll ask Jen, because I don't remember if we actually have a motion to adjourn or if it's just you.
Oh, we don't. Okay.
You
We
might
just
just say
adjourn.
meeting adjourned.
Oh, okay. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, the meeting is adjourned. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thanks a lot, Charlene, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a safe flight.
Thank you. Headed to Florida.